And welcome back, everybody, to another episode of Benched with Bubba, episode 343. I have a special guest tonight, first time guest on the show, much too long since he's been on the show. I've been on his show twice. It's about darn time he comes on this show, and that's all my fault. But you can check out all his great work at Triple Play Fantasy. He's on Twitter at art_T_Z, and his name goes by Art Tornabini. Little Cheesecake. How we doing, my friend?
I'm doing great, man. Thanks for having me on your show. Thanks for that wonderful introduction. Can't wait to have you guys back on. Triple Play. I think it's going to be soon.
Yes, there's a rumor that myself and Toby might be coming on soon because I'm a humble winner, of course, and I think I made a few comments that since Toby lost his last one, and you guys haven't been able to beat me, that I think there was something about me trying to get my third dub. You got to bring in some more ammo or something. I don't know. There's something along those lines.
I wish I was coming up with the game for that episode because it would be a doozy. But I'm going to actually compete against you guys because we need to put our best on the field, I think.
So for fun, then, which one of the three is the worst to make him do the questions?
Eric throws me. David did a game, this last game, doing walk-up music, and I was like, oh my God, I got none of them right. I lost miserably for the walk-up music game. But when you get some games where we're doing like fantasy baseball knowledge, I think I do pretty well compared to the other two. I do all right.
Yeah, they're give David, Eric maybe more of the pop culture references and stuff like that. But when we're talking fantasy baseball, we'll talk to Art here. No, I'm just kidding. Before we get started and everything, mention Triple Play. You write for SP Streamer. Let everybody know what you got going on, where they can reach you. You guys got rebranded over at Triple Play, so you guys are just busy.
Yeah, well, we got a new logo. I think we're going to be putting out some new merch with that logo. I'm writing for SP Streamer this year. I'm writing this summer. I'll be writing a catcher streaming article and also a speed steals streaming article as well for SP Streamer this summer. I'm really looking forward to that. I put out a catcher article recently, and I'll be putting out some more articles until the season starts on SP Streamer, trying to get some good tweets out. I mean, my Twitter game has to step up, but I'll work on that.
Now, you seriously are like one of the nicer Twitter people out there, and that says a lot because Twitter can be, I call it the cesspool, but it's a cesspool that I swim in too much. And you're just always supporting everybody and saying nice things. So that part's great, but you'll get the hang of it once you get rolling. It's a fine line that I go way over the top on. So just be careful with what you got going. But I'm looking forward to catching streaming is interesting. I love the concept of steal streaming. That's going to be really interesting coming up there. So looking forward to it.
Yeah, it was a challenge that Michael put for me, and I said I'd take it. I don't know what how I'm going to do. I'm going to track how I do on my picks, but I think the catcher streaming, I'm really stoked about that one because I think that people don't put enough value on catcher. And I think you could actually, if you pay close attention, you could actually stream a pretty good catcher over the course of a season.
No doubt about it. It's almost, I'm not going to say it's completely but obviously Triple Play Fantasy, you guys cover basketball, football, and baseball. The catcher's position, to me, I could be wrong. Does it feel more like the defense or the kicker? It's got to be like one of them where you can draft, I'll say defense, because you could draft one of the big guys if you want, and you can roll with them. You're never drafting a big kicker usually, but you could draft one of the big defenses. But then after that, you can just stream them, like you're saying. So does that sound about right?
Yeah, you just play in the matchups. I mean, in the way that catchers are used nowadays, almost nobody's getting full-time plate appearances anyways. So week to week, there's going to be different guys getting ABs. And there's going to be some good matchups, and I can't wait to see. I'm hoping I can get a league average player throughout the season on it.
No, it's going to be fun. I'm looking forward to it. A little bit later on, we're going to talk about Art's recent article at SP Streamer, some later round catching targets, because there's a couple names in there that on my show and some other shows I really haven't heard mentioned much. If you're doing super deep leagues right now, they're good ones to keep in the back of your mind come draft season. But before we get to that, we're going to talk about some recent news with the fantasy impacts of them, and they're in no particular order. Some of the bigger news is probably a little farther down. Just when I go through things, I just write them down and go. I don't reorder them. So we're going to start with the Mets. They signed Taijuan Walker, and it's an interesting move, 2-year deal, so they're kind of committed to him. We saw the velo increase and whatnot at times last year, but it makes that rotation pretty deep now. So what's your thoughts on Walker in New York and the fantasy relevance of that?
Well, I've been a fan of Walker since he was a prospect coming up, Seattle and Arizona. He's put together good 160, 150 inning seasons before, and he missed most of 18 and 19 for TJ. But I think that he came back and showed that his arm was healthy, and that was pretty much what you wanted to see from him last year. The fact that his ERA was good and he was outperforming his peripherals, take that for what it is. I know he's been working with Driveline. He's been working to improve his pitch offerings. He's offering a slider now, and his split change is his best pitch, and that's he's working on improving that. So I like him. I think he's going at a real nice spot. I think he's going around pick 300, 315 now for a guy who might give you 150, 160 innings in a nice park in a nice team context. I really like Walker, actually.
Yeah, he's going to be fun. I'm curious to see what keeps changing. I pulled up NFBC ADP for onlines since February 1st, and there's been 12 drafts completed. He's gone as low as 324, as high as 242. So he's starting to move now that he has a job. So I'm curious to see where that lands. I'd imagine he goes to about 230-ish, maybe, give or take, which makes things interesting because if I'm just scrolling through the ADPs here, when you get to starting pitchers around 230, you have James Paxton. Would you rather Paxton or Walker?
I think Walker, because I'm scared about Paxton's injury history.
What about Jordan Montgomery?
I'm going Jormont over Walker. Yeah.
The last one I'll go with here, because this guy I love, but I understand all the trepidation and concerns. Nate Eovaldi.
I'm going. Oh, that's a tough one. I think I'm going Walker, just because I do have some concerns about Eovaldi. His volume. He doesn't pitch a ton of innings.
No.
So I think Walker will probably out-volume him this year.
Yeah, that's the thing about Eovaldi. Like when he pitches, more often than not, they're good innings. Like he's throwing strikeouts. He's doing you look at the ratios at the end of the year. Things groovy. Problem is he never pitches a full season ever.
Right.
So it's like, it was fun when you were taking him around pick like 350 or something as a late round. Then just kind of, I remember, I think it was last year's TGFBI or the year before. My very last pick was Eovaldi. I'm like, okay, I'm just going to stash him and just use him whenever. But you can't really do that now. You have to make a decision if I want to play that game all year. The other question I'm going to ask about Walker coming here. So the Mets now have DeGrom, Carrasco, Stroman, Walker, Peterson. So you got to imagine the first four locked in. But then you got Peterson there, and then there's kind of a mix of other possible starters. Eventually Syndergaard will come back, but that's another story for another day. But when you look at the potential starters for the Mets, you have Lucchesi, you'd imagine bullpen, Gesellman, they got Jordan Yamamoto. Are you still a believer at Peterson's the guy, or are you just concerned I'm just not going to draft Peterson now?
I mean, I haven't been drafting Peterson, but I think he's the guy for now. I don't know what they're doing. And Seth Lugo just went down, if I'm not mistaken, right? So he was a guy who I was hoping might get a chance for a starting spot for them this year, actually. But without Lugo, I think Peterson's the guy until Thor comes back. But I'm not sure what to expect from him, actually.
Yeah, so Peterson's a tough one. Yeah, Peterson's a tough one. I've been depending on what best ball or drafting hole I'm in, he kind of falls every once in a while. I'm thinking, okay, he's going to get innings. This before the Walker deal. And I was kind of more confident in it, but now it's a little more sketch. So I'm not as gung-ho about it as you were saying. We mentioned James Paxton a second ago where his ADP is going. He's gone as high as 195 over that period of time. So there's a little bit of helium coming with the Big Maple, but the Big Maple is returning to Seattle where he kind of got the whole thing going with the Mariners. And you mentioned some concerns with him. What's your thoughts on James Paxton this season?
Well, I like that Seattle's going into the season looking at a 6-man rotation. That would work out to about 27 starts per season, 5 less starts than a 5-man rotation. But his best seasons were 28 starts and 29 starts. So 27 is kind of going into the season aiming for his best level of starts. So I like that in his favor. And I think conceptually doing that will save his arm a little bit. I'm not guessing that it will. I'm not going to predict that it will, but I think conceptually coming in, this is where I would be confident in that type of situation for him. 6 starters, giving him an extra off day in between each start, conserving that arm just a little bit because he's been pretty close to elite when he's been healthy.
Yeah, it's a good point you make. The 6-man rotation, it scares a lot of people off, but Simeone, SP streamer himself, a few episodes back, he broke it down and it made a lot of sense to me. Is if these guys go 6-man rotations, okay, that extra day's rest maybe allows them when they do pitch to go another inning or two, or maybe their 6 innings are more productive because they're like stronger. Like it's going to be different strokes for different folks, but you'd have to imagine it can't hurt them,
right?
More than anything. Sure, you mentioned that the starts are going to get reduced and all this and that, but it comes back to the story we used to talk about it with Steven Strasburg, who used to throw like 150 to 160 innings, and then you kind of play the injury game. You used to thought whenever he's out there though, they're quality innings.
Yeah.
When James Paxton's out there, they're going to be quality innings. Like the ratios are going to be good, strikeouts are going to be good. So I'm getting more intrigued by him. The fact he's there. Obviously there's injury concerns. Would you take him as high as 195, or would you rather his 230 ADP? Like, are you willing to go high on him?
I think it depends on if I don't feel like I have a high end rotation yet. I think I'd take him a little bit higher if I felt like I had gone pretty safe earlier in my draft. But if I had taken Strasburg, I'm not going to take Paxton, or I no longer consider a few other people as risky. But I like him as someone who I would take to try and up the overall ceiling of my rotation.
Yeah, he's definitely a risk, like you said, but he brings that just upside. So maybe one way to look at it is when we'll talk TGFBI a little later, and that's got an overall component. Maybe he's great for that because he's got that ceiling to take you over. But maybe if you're just like in a 12-team league that's got no overall, maybe play a little safer. It's just like, say he goes and pick 195, going to 196 Dallas Keuchel. So it's a good example. Do you want the safe Dallas Keuchel, or do you want the upside of James Paxton? And lineup construction is going to be huge for that, or your roster construction is going to be huge for that. All right, let's talk the New York Yankees. They did it. I can even ask Curland when a couple like earlier this past week, Aaron Boone said Clint Frazier is our starting left fielder. And Curland goes, they're going to screw this up. And I responded, they're going to sign Brett Gardner. And I had to do it. I told you so gif. It had to happen. But what's your take on this? Like, Clint Frazier, I was very excited to have a chance. They bring Gardner in. Are you concerned with Gardner? Because Boone even came out over the weekend and said it's still Clint Frazier's job. But let's be real. Gardner's going to do something, right?
Yeah. Yeah, I think, as long as Judge is healthy, he likes to play Hicks. Yeah. He likes to play Hicks every day, and Hicks is the best center fielder they have, so that makes sense. You got Tauchman, Gardner, and Frazier for one spot. As well, when Stanton and Judge are both healthy. And that's a lot of mouths to feed in one position. But Frazier was really good when he played last year. So, I think he'll probably get the most amount of that time. But, Boone, they're doing the same thing that the Dodgers and Padres are doing. They want to get as many bats so they can rotate them around. And it's a good strategy. Those teams are all going to be in the playoffs because they're spending to get these deep teams. But it is going to hurt our fantasy squads. But I was loving Frazier. I was hoping that he was going to get 600 plate appearances this year.
Yeah, I was a big fan of what he did last year. Looking forward to him this year. Like his ADP is 180, which is intriguing because he's going around guys like Gallo, Ian Happ, Nick Solak, Max Kepler. When you're talking outfielders, he's got something there. It's just, do you want to take that chance anymore? Because even let's say 12 picks early, you have Anthony Santander. And some people don't like him, but decent average, some pop. There's a lot of similarities to him and Clint Frazier.
I love Santander, yeah.
It's like now with the concern of Frazier, it's almost like you have to take Santander, don't you think?
I think so. He's coming back. He was going to have a monster short sample last season if he had stayed healthy. And I expect him to just continue in that groove. With Frazier, with Gardner coming back, Boone's going to play Gardner a lot. He loves him. So what do we like 450 plate appearances for Frazier?
Yeah, probably. Let me see what the projections have. Because I have their roster right here. For Frazier right now, like looking at the Bat X, 138 games. He still has him for 598. ATC has him for 530. So even at 530, say they project him for 23 and 7 stolen bases, 252. Not bad, but probably not what you're hoping for, I guess. like a guy going 14 picks later is Kyle Schwarber. Would you rather Kyle Schwarber or Clint Frazier?
Schwarber, I think. Well, Frazier's OBP was so good last year, and they batted him fourth a lot of last season when he played. Oh man, that's a tough one. But I mean, Schwarber, I think he's such a good hitter. I don't know why his batting average has been so poor the last few years, because he coming up, he was a guy who could roll out of bed and hit. So I'm hoping that he gets to DH, but I don't think it's happening. But I think Schwarber's power is going to sell me over Frazier because of the playing time concerns now. But yeah, it's a tough call for me.
It is. And that's what makes it hard to draft Frazier where he's at, because you see like these other players available, and it's just like now there's like and it could be a nothing concern, but it's a concern that should be at least somewhat relevant, and it makes it interesting. But you can play devil's advocate, and I'll at least mention this, and you hinted at it, I've hinted at it. The chances that Stanton and Judge stay healthy enough to make this last, we know something's going to happen. Even Hicks has had problems, and so it's like. It's the old baseball HQ saying is take skills over role. And it's like, if you believe in Frazier, go for it. But just know that there is concern. There's definitely concern there, and it just kind of sucks. Let's go to the Minnesota Twins. They went and picked up J.A. Happ, and this is, to me, a move I like because he's just a boring veteran pitcher. Nothing too sexy, but he's going to fill in nicely with a team that's always kind of lacking in pitching depth. They've shored up their defense, which is always big. What do you think about Happ going to Minnesota? He's a guy that I know we can stream from time to time, but is he draftable too?
Yeah, as a back-end stabilizer or your rotation, he's going to throw. He threw 160 innings in 2019. He made 9 starts last season in 2020. Actually, my memory of his 2020 is a lot worse than what he actually produced. He had an under 3.5 ERA. In his xFIP was league average, so he wasn't even like poor xFIP, but with a good ERA. He was league average. I think Minnesota's a better park context for him, and they need him to throw innings. So I like him as a late stabilizer. His good K minus walk ratio is gonna continue there.
Yeah, no, I'm with there. It's kind of it's not a flashy pick. It's not a must-have pick, but he seems to do it time and time again. He's just boring. When you look at his ADP right now, 329. He's on tie at 259. So since he's signed, he's moving up the ladder, but still, if you just need a kind of a stabilizer, like you said, very, very interesting. Let's talk Oakland. They surprised me. I don't know about other people, maybe you too, but they went and signed Trevor Rosenthal to close. And I was surprised because A, I didn't think they'd spend the money. I think it was like 11 mil. Mm-hmm. B, I have a lot of Jake Diekman shares.
Yeah.
So, yeah. So what's your take on Rosenthal in Oakland, and kind of how do you see, people like Diekman? There's Wendelken. Romo looked like he probably sniped some. What are you doing there?
I was convinced Romo was going to end up with it when he signed there. I think they're signaling that Rosenthal is a guy, but Diekman's, and if you're in a saves and hold league, Diekman's a guy you want to hold on to. But I think Rosenthal is going to be getting the bulk of the save opportunities. They're a team that has gone to one closer at a time. They're not a team that likes to do the closer by committee. So I think it's going to be Rosenthal for the whole season.
Yeah, no, that's what I'm scared about. I'm with you there. It's a great spot for him because that team's going to be good, and they seem to, you can't predict saves, but they're a team when you watch them, they don't blow a lot of teams out very often. Like they play really good games, they win a lot of games, but it seems like there's always chances for saves there. Like Hendricks, like there's always a top end closer. Say they come out of Oakland.
They manage their relief pitchers really well there.
Well, that's why they've signed so many this offseason. Like if you look at their roster, they know what they're doing. They limit their starters, keep them out of trouble. It's very, very well done in Oakland. So Rosenthal's gone as high as 117 since he's been signed. Where do you kind of put him in the echelon of closers come draft day? Like there's Hendricks, there's Hader. Do you have Rosenthal right behind them? Do you have like Chapman in front of him? How do you look at him?
I put Iglesias above Chapman actually myself. I love Iglesias in Los Angeles. Chapman, I'm worried about him. He's the type of guy, if he loses 1 or 2 miles per hour, it's going to make a big difference on his game. But I still think he's really solid. I'm having trouble. I'm not 100% sure where to put Kirby Yates. Rosenthal last year, his K percentage was so good that you kind of have to consider him up at that upper level, especially going to Oakland. place that knows how to use closers and gives them a lot of opportunities to put up good seasons as they've done the last 3-4 years. So I hadn't considered taking him that high. I'd been sort of following ADP lately, but yeah, I mean, he'd go above Hand. He'd
Oh
go
yeah.
above. He's above Karinchak for me because Karinchak, I'm not sure if he has the role all season. Yeah, it's interesting now that you say that. I'm gonna have to rework my relief pitcher rankings, I think.
Yeah, I've almost finished redoing my top 100 starting pitchers. The last thing for me to do is relievers. It's on my spreadsheet. And I look at it, I'm like, oh, that just looks disgusting. I really don't want to do it. Like I just because I already know it's going to change. It changes so fast these days. But Rosenthal's got to get a bump for me. He's going to get a definite bump. The other closer that signed recently, Mark Melancon, signed with the San Diego Padres, and this was one that people had Pomeranz, people thought Pagan. Do you believe Melancon's the guy there? Or do you think there's going to be a committee? How are you going about that?
I think it's another spot where they like to use one closer at a time. And call me old fashioned. I think Melancon signs to close where he signs. Rob DiPietro was on the pod this week, and he brought up we talked about this. He brought up the possibility of Pomeranz doing like a fireman thing, 2 inning, maybe 90 innings on the season. You know, even if he doesn't close, if he gets to be like a 2 inning guy, he could be a top 10 relief pitcher with that K rate. So it's interesting for both of them.
Yeah, I'm with you. It's one of those. If you want to get aggressive, Melancon's still going around 264, as high as 166 since he signed. So he's not going as high as Rosenthal, but with as murky as the closer situation is, he's definitely climbing the ladder. But I like the Pomeranz comment because he's got that feel. Even like last year with the Padres, he was throwing a couple innings here and there. Even with Milwaukee after the Giants traded him, he was doing that. He's got that kind of Hader feel to him before Hader was a closer. That bring him in when it's important, let him get the job done. He's a former starter, so he's not one of those relievers that has to start or finish an inning. He can come in the middle, start another inning after that. It's not going to phase him as much type thing. So I like that shout on Pomeranz there. I think he's definitely got more legs than people want to give him credit for. And in reality, we got to think about it. If the Padres win as many games as we think they're going to,
yeah,
Lorenzo's not saving all of them. That's just not going to happen. So there are going to be chances. There's going to be some games where there's a heavy stud lefty setup coming in the ninth. And they're going to go, nope, Pomeranz, you're coming in. So wouldn't be shocked. All right, Philadelphia Phillies. I heard my co-host Batflip Crazy's heart shatter when this took place. Maybe not as many pieces as JT Realmuto's thumb, but yes. There's good news since this happened, though. JT Realmuto broke his non-throwing thumb, his throwing thumb, his non-catching thumb. So keep that in mind. But there's already reports that he's throwing the ball and swinging already. So we'll see how that goes. They're expecting to be ready by opening day. Does this change anything for you when you look at JT Realmuto?
I mean, hand injuries always worry me for power. And Realmuto, his value is not totally based on power, but it is at least partially based on power. His value, I think he's going to get the plate appearances, which really, really boost his value, and he's going to have the good batting average, and he's going to hit a good spot in the lineup, I think. But if his power steps down a little bit, at least through the first part of the season while his hand is recovering, it will actually sap his overall value pretty significantly because it is built on like how much better than the other catchers he is. His strength is mostly from the fact that he's being compared to other catchers. And so if I don't know if you have any knowledge about how thumb injuries affect power, but I always assume that hand injuries do have some power effects.
Yeah, Derek Rhodes, who's been on the show, friend of the show, he has his injury tool, and he tweeted something out after the Realmuto injury that it was like the last 8 guys or so that had some kind of hand injury. Like 6 of the 8 guys' OPSs all dropped pretty significantly that season. They bounced back eventually, but for most of the season, they were pretty shut down. I think it was like Christian Yelich and then one other kind of fluky one that didn't drop. So pick your poison there. Then the other thing he said is usually this injury, because you can see it from the tool, has an average, so he could be above average, but an average recovery time of 40 days.
Okay.
So a couple things to think about there. But I guess the other part of the question is is kind of the gap between Real Muto and catcher 2 was pretty large. He's still the catcher 1, right?
Yeah, I think so. But I'm not taking him. I'm not reaching for him in the 30s. Like I've taken Real Muto on about half of my teams, and so I'm taking him anywhere between 30 and 50 when he's on the board. Now I'm probably waiting. I'm not going to be reaching for him as much because I do think his power is going to be sapped just a little bit.
Yeah, I'm with you, and that's a big concern. Let's go to another catcher, the Toronto Blue Jays. Everyone loves themselves some Alejandro Kirk, but there's some news that came out this week, and this is what's fun about this year compared to last year's. We actually have news out of spring training. The manager said Kirk could, quote unquote, make the team out of spring training as a backup catcher. What does that do for you come draft time now? Because I've been nervous to draft him to begin with. It has the Williams Astudillo feel to it. We all love him, but then we saw what happened. They want Jansen to catch, it looks like. So they want Kirk to probably play in AAA and stay loose. So what are you doing?
Why are you doing this to us, Toronto? You sign all these guys. I thought Kirk was going to be DHing this year, like a month ago. Why are you doing this to us? Now you're bringing us back. This is, just either let us go or reel us in. Stop teasing us. I don't know. I think you're right. I think he's going to start in AAA. Reese McGuire isn't great, but he's a pro backup, and they don't need Kirk to sit on the bench for 4 days a week, 5 days a week. They can put McGuire on the bench, and McGuire has been a pretty decent hitter actually in the bigs as recently as 2 seasons ago. So I think at least a month or 2 months in the minor leagues for Kirk.
Yeah, and so it makes it very tough to draft him. Very, very tough. He's the 18th catcher off the board. It's tough to do. So, yeah, I won't be drafting any Kirk, which stinks, but keep your waiver wires ready. Maybe he'll be streaming at some point by Mr. Art over there.
Absolutely.
This one was good to hear. I don't know how – I still need to see it to believe it, but I've always been a big Eduardo Rodriguez fan, Erod. Last year, obviously missed the whole season due to COVID, had some serious complications with COVID, kind of scary stuff with his heart and everything. But he came out saying he's 100% healthy. And one thing with Erod in the past, you knew he was good for innings. He was going to make his starts. Their rotation's such a mess, they're just going to have to let him pitch. He said he feels healthy. There's no concerns. I plan on throwing at least 30 starts this season. Now, that's his words, not the coach's. But how much does that make you feel better to maybe take a chance on him? Because I've been nervous to draft him all draft season. But he's going to pick 220. So what's your thoughts there?
I'm going to believe him. He was suffering from some pretty serious myocarditis after the COVID-19 diagnosis, but they've documented his recovery, his health as it's gone along pretty consistently, how he's been. They said he was feeling bad. They were honest about that. And so I'm going to believe him, and I'm actually considering his draft price to be a pretty good bargain with what you might get from him actually. I'm picking him. I'm starting to target him, late in the 100s. I'm not waiting until 200 for him.
Yeah, I'm starting to feel you there because like last year I was all in on him. I remember he was getting drafted in the grouping of I'm gonna blank now. There's like Max Fried, Erod, and a couple other guys. They're all kind of getting drafted around the same point. And obviously we know how that turned out. But seeing where he's going now, we're getting quite the discount at the moment. He's going right around Michael Pineda. It's like, give me Erod if he is good to go. Like I'll take that chance. Obviously, Pineda pitches in a better division, but we know what Erod can do when he's on. Like, give me that. So I'm with you. When I updated my starting pitching rankings, he got quite a big boost because I was so nervous beforehand, getting quite the boost. I forget exactly where now, but he's like, I still have him around like the 60s, I think. But it's like if I saw 1 or 2 good starts with the velos popping, he's moving way up again. Like I need to see a little more, but I'm much more inclined to take him where he's at, like you said, which is good.
What about Paxton versus Erod?
Oh, man. Talk about that. I'm going to go Erod just because his injury, as bad as it is, has nothing to do with his arm or shoulder.
Right.
Paxton, we've seen Paxton perennially get like an elbow or a shoulder or something, which we know is just going to keep tweaking as he gets older.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why these words from Erod is we talked about it on the show before. I know you guys talk about it. There's going to be so much news that comes out of spring training. Like, what do you believe? What do you not believe? When I see Erod say those things, and like you mentioned, they've documented what he's done. Like they've released, like, hey, he's doing this, he's doing this.
Yeah,
it's a little more believable.
Yeah.
Like, so I feel yes, that's not like, hey, Juan Soto wants to steal more bases.
Same manager who said Trey was going to have 70 steals 2 seasons ago.
Exactly. So
Yeah.
let's put the carrot in front of the horse a little less on that one. But let's talk Los Angeles Dodgers, the reigning World Series champions. That's going to pay me to say for a full season. They re-signed Justin Turner, the most obvious thing that was going to happen this entire
Yeah.
postseason. He was coming back to LA, and I kept wanting to tell myself no because I love Edwin Rios so much. So, two-part question: are you in on Justin Turner around pick 212? And what's your thoughts on Edwin Rios now?
Yeah, we never thought the Dodgers were going to go into opening day with Edwin Rios as the starting third baseman. 212, I find third base to be one of the more shallow positions. I don't like to wait that long to get somebody. So I don't have any shares of Justin Turner right now. And he usually plays about 2/3 of the games. I mean, you could 120, 130 games. I don't know. I could see a draft where I decide to wait till like 150 and get Donaldson or Turner or someone like that. But you know, to me, I don't want to get caught with Donaldson or Turner as my starting third baseman. Although
Yeah,
I love Turner when he's playing.
that's the thing is like when he's playing, it's why it makes it intriguing. It's the whole philosophy. Do you want to draft him as like a corner infield and rotate him in and out when he's not healthy? The whole replacement value argument that people like to make, because you're right. 130 games. You look at his logs. He's had like 1 year at 151 in 2018. Other than that, it's like 100 to 130. Like that's what he's going to do. Like the projections, the bad X 130, 26 homers, hitting 289. Like those are awesome numbers. So it's tough. Like he's in a world where batting average just continues to fall. He is a consistent right there, which is nice. So it's kind of a roster construction thing that we talk about once in a while. It's maybe take a chance early on a guy if you want, or if you, like I said, make him a corner infield option if you so choose. But it will be pretty interesting. I'm gonna put this one across the front of the screen here. Not sure if you can see that, it just popped up there. But we got a friendly one from our buddy D Mindy. I see a lot of cake on the right side of my screen. We got this one earlier. Right. I forgot to mention Coaching Ish. He's a good dude.
Oh man,
one of the best. One of the best.
Absolutely, absolutely. I'm just glad D Mendy didn't call me cheesy.
Yeah, I always feel bad because I don't have the screen on where the videos at. Most of the time I'm scrolling through other sites and then I see like a list of things over here. I'm like, I wasn't ignoring you. But so Edwin Rios now, like the reports are that they still want to play him at third base, but obviously no DH limits the overall impact. Is he even draftable for you right now?
No, I don't.
Sucks.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know. That's the short and sweet, simple answer. But man, that swing, that power, just getting held back. Dodgers gonna Dodger. Probably have a monster postseason again.
I'm gonna have Fab whenever Turner goes down for Edwin Rios, though.
Oh yeah, he's gonna be expensive.
He's gonna get expensive.
Awesome. Yep,
for like a 2-week stint as the starter.
And hopefully they go to Coors for 4. Yeah, that's all I gotta say. This move this past week, it brought so many smiles. Like I was a giddy kid on a Monday. CJ Cron. I love CJ Cron. I've documented, I've written about him. Like I love CJ Cron. Most major league teams don't love CJ Cron apparently because it's one team after another. But he signed with the Colorado Rockies. Sure, it's a minor league deal, but we know how that's going to go. CJ Cron in Coors Field. Derek Carty tweeted out like a full season of Cron in just the Rockies in general. Obviously, 81 games or whatever at Coors. However you want to break that down, the numbers were just asinine, basically. Like it was just crazy what he's going to do. Let me pull up the bat projections that Carty has here.
Okay.
He has him 110 games. I don't think these are updated yet. At 110 games, he has 28 homers and a 274 average. So that's just a limited basis there. He's going to pick 311. Since he signed, he's going to pick as high as 196.
Wow.
What are your thoughts on Cron with the Rockies?
Well, 2 seasons ago in Minnesota, he had the most home runs that should have gone out but didn't because he was playing in a big park. I think, a place like Colorado, yeah, he's a good value pick at that range. His batting average is never actually pretty bad. He's 250 guy, 260 guy. So he's not going to kill you, and he has the type of power that a deadened ball is not going to really affect. He has real power. So I mean, he's another late power source for you. I like him. I like him late.
What's your thoughts on? Okay, so here I found it. In Derek Carty in 600 plate appearances with the Rockies, the Bat X would project Cron for 274, 35 homers, 97 ribbies, 82 runs, and a 366 WOBA.
Oh my God.
Yeah, so that's pretty wild, but we'll have to see where that goes. I think it's a fun pick. Where would you rather have? They're going pretty close to each other. Cron's probably jumped them a bit now with the move. Would you rather have Cedar Cron in Colorado, which obviously is a great landing spot, but still maybe questionable playing time, or Renato Nunez in Detroit?
You know, Michael Govier was questionable about Cron's health as well.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I got to go Cron. I think he has more upside. I love Nunez though. I've been waiting for him to find a spot.
Yeah, no, I when that signing happened, I was like a day or two before Cron. I was like, oh man, it's all happening. My DFS boys are all getting signed. This is great. Let's do this. But yeah, Nunez is always underappreciated. Tigers, we actually have a question on that later, so I'll hide some of that. But underappreciated offense for fantasy. The Atlanta Braves, they bring back Marcell Ozuna. Nice deal for both sides of the spectrum there. What does that do for you having Ozuna back in Atlanta?
I mean, it's a great spot for him. He was great there. He's comfortable there. DH or no DH, you can't let a bat like that slip through your fingers just because you have to play in the outfield. He actually wasn't too terrible in 2019 in St. Louis playing outfield, even though prior to that he had rated out as a pretty poor outfielder. But, in a season, they're going to have DH in the NL. So get him back, have him hit just like he has. He's never, ever been bad any season. He's at over 100, over 107 WRC plus every season, even the quote unquote down years of his career.
Yeah, he's that model of consistency. That's crazy. Just realize he's not running anymore, and you're fine. That's just how it's going to go. He's going right before George Springer. Would you rather have Springer or Ozuna?
Ozuna.
Yeah, I'm with you. Okay, I like it. I'm not even going to say Ozuna and Judge because Judge just can't stay healthy. But
I can't draft Judge.
yeah,
I can't even do it
because I wrote up Judge in a 80. I said I did an ADP to pay last year, Judge versus Franmil Reyes, and my argument was Franmil will probably play most of a full season. Judge won't. So their numbers will be similar.
Yeah,
but like if you look at Judge's, like when he's healthy, the dude is scary. It's just he can't stay healthy. It's terrifying. So that'll wrap up the recent news segment. Obviously, it's fun. They're actually signing people these days. That's a change of pace. But I want to hit on your late round catcher targets. You mentioned you're going to be writing a catcher streaming article. When you're going into drafts, how do you approach the catcher's position? There's like between like one catcher, two catcher leagues, 12-team, 15-team leagues. How do you go about the catcher position?
Well, if it's a one catcher league, I'm a little bit more casual about it because you can find people try to boost up catchers who don't need to be boosted up is what I'll say. I think in a one catcher league, you can wait and get a guy like Christian Vasquez, who's going way behind, Sal Perez and Will Smith and all those guys. And I think it's going to provide you with a little bit of speed and also pretty good batting statistics. In a two catcher league, though, when you consider that on average about 21 catchers per year get about half playing time, and on average, only about 18, 19 catchers per year are actually positive offensive value. I like to go early on catcher because it is one of the biggest advantages you can get on team building over everybody else.
Yeah, I'm 100% with you. It's a trend that I'm waiting to see catch on because you just said it. Toby preaches it like crazy, and I bought into it. Listening to him talk about it because it makes a ton of sense. The advantage. We just looked at outfield ADP, talking about some late outfield guys. I would rather take my chances with late outfielders than late catchers. Everyone wants to talk about replacement value. I get the argument there, but say you don't, not even taking Real Muto, go and take Yasmani Grandal or pick whatever he's going 100, 120 something. You can find an outfielder or something later in the draft that'll make up the difference between Yasmani Grandal and Danny Jansen.
Absolutely,
you can find that. So. I'm with you there. It's at least in two catcher leagues, I found myself, especially 15-team two catcher leagues, I found myself getting at least one really good guy early, trying to get two. Now, this year it's interesting because you have some of the veterans that are boring, like Buster Posey's all of a sudden not expensive. He's got good average, no power. Yadi Molina's back. He's steady Eddie. So you got some interesting options if you want to wait a little bit. So some of the targets you have going late are very intriguing. Your top targets are Wilson Ramos, Omar Narvaez, and Ian Gomes. I wanted to ask you about Narvaez, a guy that I've been very high on in recent years. People don't believe him because of his StatCast numbers or whatever are kind of sketchy. What do you have on Narvaez that you like to take as a top target late?
Well, Narvaez had possibly the worst season by a catcher over the last 5 seasons as far as Rasball value was 2020. Now, he's even if you include that, his WRC plus over his career 1,300 plate appearances is over 100. It's 108. I like Milwaukee's offense, even which was everyone was cold in Milwaukee last year. I like them as a team to bounce back a little bit. And I think that even if they do split playing time, platoon him with Manny Pena, which I'm not 100% sure they're going to do. I think that he's good. There are a lot of right-handers in the NL Central, and he's going to be getting a lot of plate appearances. I see him getting at least 400 plate appearances this year and bringing back that 100 WRC plus that we have expected from him prior to 2020.
No, I like that quite a bit. I think people don't realize just how good he can be, and he's one of those guys that kind of StatCast just not going to work in his favor, it looks like. And a lot of it's because he goes the opposite way so much. I think that kind of affects him. If he starts pulling the ball more, watch out. That'll be a lot of fun. You have Yan Gomes there, and it's always been, Yan Gomes, Ichiro Suzuki, platoon. Well, Ichiro's out of or not Ichiro, Kurt Suzuki.
Yeah,
Kurt's out of town now. So you're in on Yan Gomes this year, it looks like.
Yeah, well, they signed, I think, Alex Avila to be the backup catcher, and he's not stealing at bats from anybody. Gomes, he's a good defensive catcher, but his hitting is not going to get him more plate appearances than he deserves. Gomes has been a really good hitting catcher. I mean, over the past 6-7 years, he has 15 home run potential. He's going to hit 250 to 280. Anywhere in that range, and over 400 to 450 plate appearances going that late, that he's going to be a top 15 overall catcher, and he's going as like the 23rd or 24th catcher right now.
I like it. I like that one a lot. Some of your later targets, your young targets, you wrote down Ryan Jeffers, and I'm very excited about this because I've been taking him in like best ball drafting holds pretty late as a second catcher, maybe even a third catcher. I think the average upside's big. And I feel like he's going to play over Garver right now. So what do you see when you see Ryan Jeffers?
I think he's going to play over Garver as well. He's got the, Garver, even in his amazing 2019, only got 350 plate appearances. It wasn't like they carved out 400 to 450 plate appearances. Jeffers, they said he's ready defensively to catch in the bigs. And that's usually the biggest hurdle that a young catcher has when they're coming up is getting up there, being able to handle the pitching staff, being able to handle the thinking part of the game. And they, the word is that he's ready. So he can just come up and hit like he has been in the minor leagues. And he had a nice little cup of coffee last year with them.
No, I like it quite a bit. You have Luis Torrens down from the Seattle Mariners. And this one, this is why I was really intrigued to talk to you is he's listed as a starting catcher on roster resource. Mm-hmm. They have Tom Murphy, who we know tons of power, does not much else. And you're in on him this year, it looks like. So talk to us about Luis Torrens, because I have not heard anybody talk about him.
Well, I mean, it could be more that I am completely out on Tom Murphy.
Fair enough.
But they let in September, Torrens was starting almost every game for them after they picked him up from San Diego in that trade. Torrens is someone who San Diego picked up from the Rule 5 draft in 2017, and he was a single A player, never played above single A, but they kept him on the major league roster for the entire 2017 season, and he was completely overmatched, but they wanted to have him in the system because they believed in him so much. And I think this is one of those sneaky gets in the trade that Seattle got. In that trade, they got Munoz and they got Torrens. After that slow development year, 2017, by 2019, he had started to show pop in his bat. And he hit well. He's had high minor league batting averages, He's been able to keep his strikeouts down all throughout the minor leagues. So I think he's someone who he's going to be putting the ball in play. He's had good batting averages. And if he continues to show that pop, I like him. Yeah, Murphy's. I have no respect for Murphy's game other than his pop. He strikes out so much. I think Torrens, given that long view they had with him last year, I think he's going to elbow out Murphy for a full-time position there.
Yeah, I'm looking at I got his Fangraphs page up right now, and since he came over, like you mentioned, that year he had to spin in 2017, you just crossed that one off. Like that's just just overmatched, wasn't supposed to be there. But man, after that, like you said, power started to slowly develop, hit 280, hit 300 in back-to-back stops in the minors. Even last year, between the Padres and the Mariners, he hit 257. But more importantly, that really stands out, like you said, low strikeout rate, which for a young player, even in the bigs, is big. Like last year, he struck out 19.2% of the time. So that's showing he's making the adjustments, which is really good to see. And then the walk rates have always been pretty good, 8, 9%, sometimes double digits. So he gives you some OBP upside as well. Like this is intriguing to me. That's why, again, like I said, I like to learn things as I host podcasts. And Torrens is a guy I really just kind of looked over time and time again because Seattle just frustrates the snot out of me.
Yeah.
But this is an intriguing one. I'm definitely going to have to dig in some more here and maybe grab a share or two later on. I like that quite a bit. You have a couple other guys that I have on like all of my rosters, at least one of them, if not two, and that's Jacob Stallings and Elias Diaz. Elias Diaz is like my boo. If the Rockies screw this up, I'm going to be so furious, but I shouldn't be surprised. So any thoughts on Stallings and Diaz? Because you can get them for free right now.
Yeah. I mean, they're guys who are getting plate appearances. I mean, Stallings was a Gold Glove finalist last year. And so I think there's no way that he's going to be losing plate appearances. They're going to play him for his defense. And he hits for a good batting average. He's always had a high BABIP. He's been able to maintain that. So he's not going to be giving you a lot of pop, but he is going to be a guy who's not going to hurt you in batting average. And his counting stats are going to accumulate because he's going to be getting the playing time. Diaz, I find a little bit more interesting because I think he has a lot more upside than Stallings because he's done really well over a good sample in 2018 in Pittsburgh, and two, because he's also in Colorado now. So he didn't do very well in his first run in Colorado, but it was 53 plate appearances, 53 plate appearances, I think. But in those 53 plate appearances, he had 6 barrels, which was as many as he had in all of 2019, which was a really bad year for him, a poor year in Pittsburgh. I think that there's a good shot he comes out and is back to what he was like in 2018 with full-time run in Colorado. I like him, but I do also like their backup. They signed a backup for him. His name Nunez, I think.
Yeah, Tom Nunez.
Who has some interesting parts about him too. But I think it's Diaz's to start, and if he hits as I expect, I think he'll hold on to it.
Yeah, it should be Diaz's to start, but I pulled up Nunez's page and does show some pop in the minors. So that is, and a little bit of speed as well. Like from 2018 through 2013, he had 7 or more steals every year in the minors. So that's for a catcher. Don't tell Toby, he might get excited here. That's like a almost you need a safe word if you tell him that it's a catcher that steals. So that's interesting stuff right there. No, good stuff, really good stuff. I liked that Torrens one. Really wanted to get your thoughts on that. So that gets me needing to dig in some more on that. But let's talk some TGFBI, and I want to talk strategy involved with it. Obviously, don't give away all your secrets. There's no fun in that, but it's fun because I've had the privilege of knowing Justin Mason for a while and being since it started. So I guess this will be my 4th year in TGFBI and watching it grow. And I love many things about it, but one of the biggest things is you get to meet so many people you don't know. When I first started, I didn't know any of the quote unquote big names. Right. Now I talk to Jeff Erickson on the regular because I was in a league with him. Like there's little things that when you start out, you think, you see a CBS or a RotoWire, like they'll never talk to me. But then you play in a league with them, and everyone, I've said it forever, this community is so friendly. Like no one's scary like that. But for now, I get to every league, you think you know everybody, and you don't. Like, I'm in a league right now where I only knew like 2 other guys. So I have followed all these new people and I'm getting to know them. Once we draft, I'll really get to know them.
Yeah.
So I'm loving that. But I wanted to talk to you because this is your first year in TGFBI. So first, congratulations.
Thank you.
And secondly, let's just start out with the basics. What's your, obviously you want to win the whole thing, but what's your realistic goal? What do you want to do, like, to have like a successful, respectable season?
I want to finish in the top 100.
Okay.
I think
I like that answer. I'll let you finish it because, most people are like, I got to win, but let's be real about it. It's fantasy baseball. Where could you finish and be like, okay, that was fun. That was good. So top 100. Good.
Yeah, that's the top 25%. I think that's pretty lofty with this competition. And it's going to be the first actual overall competition that I've ever entered. So I'm going to have to, I've been working out how I want to attack it. But I've been picking a lot of people's brains.
Yep. No, it's fun. I think a flaw of mine is I always draft more safe or cautious. So it might work well in my individual league, but for an overall, it gets tricky. But obviously, baseball's so long, you can make fab changes and make that work. Do you plan on staying safe? Or are you going to take a few more risks than you usually take? What are you going in? Because 2 years ago, I finished 35th overall. The last day, I think 3 of us finished in the top 35, and it was fluctuating like crazy. And so safe can work, but it's obviously the other 2 years I was like outside the top 100. So how do you plan on going about it?
Well, the sexy guys, I see a strategy. Let me just say, I see a strategy that I'm not sure I'm going to implement with Alberto Mondesi as being that's the unsafe strategy, where I go for someone who's like really, really being drafted highly, but has some extreme like Mondesi. But I probably won't. I'm generally a safe drafter, especially in my first 10 rounds. I don't want to miss my first 10 picks. I want to hit on all of them. So so I start to take chances at that point with guys like Erod, with guys like Paxton, with guys well, I guess we'll find out where Kluber's going at that point. But Kluber's a guy I definitely could see taking a chance on.
And I like the point there because you get those first 10 rounds or so of quote unquote safe picks. Obviously, anything can happen, but these are guys you feel pretty confident you're going to start time after time and you're not have to worry about anything. But now you're taking these guys later on that, on a normal year, if they were healthy, would probably be a top 10 round pick. And now you're getting them here. So it's kind of the whole values a very touchy word these days. And I love Rob DiPietro. We talked about it before, and I get his point. But we even on that show, we're like, well, what do we call it? Like, it's value. But it's that's kind of what you got to look for to get that ceiling player where he's not supposed to be. So potential value or whatever you want to call it. When you're drafting, now this is where it gets fun because I'll take a gamble or two, like you're saying, once you get a little later. But for like an overall, you don't need to have a bunch of gambles, but you have to have a couple that hit.
Yeah.
Are you planning on, and again, if you don't want to answer, it's fine. Are you planning on taking multiple gambles, or is it kind of I'll take a couple like usual and see what happens?
Well, I think that there's a lot of values coming off of the short sample.
Mm-hmm.
I think a guy like Jose Altuve is at a huge value right now. Well, he's being at a huge discount right now. Yeah. Rob, getting in my head. He's being taken at a huge discount right now. And second base is a position where if you have a nice advantage there, it's kind of like catcher in that respect. So, and I think, a lot of guys that had a poor short sample, you could actually do a poor short sample team on like almost all the way through and look at it and go, I really like this team. I think like you can have Austin Meadows, Jose Altuve, JD Martinez. If you're stacking all these guys on your team, you're like, I think they're all going to come back. And you got like 6 or 7 guys who a year or two ago were going top 5 rounds, and you got them in like 9, 10, or no, like 6, 7, 8 rounds.
You're getting a couple round value for sure compared to what you were. And like Ryan Bloomfield, I think he did a DC. I think it was after the Super Bowl, or maybe a few weeks before that. Maybe it was after or when the playoffs started for football or whatever. But he did one of his first ones, and he put up his like first 10 picks. He's like, "Look at it, it's a 2019 ADP list," and it was like and it's so true. It's like you look at it and going, "Oh man, like literally Altuve used to be a top 2 or 3 round pick." You mentioned JD. Like you just go down the list of all these guys, and it's man, if they can rebound even close to what they were before, you're getting like something nice here. So it's you mentioned Austin Meadows. I'm going to ask you, what are you doing with him? Because I know COVID hit him, but man, did he look so bad last year.
He did, and early on in the offseason, I was completely off of him. But now that I'm getting into my roto drafts, I'm not doing any best ball drafts anymore. The potential for 10 plus steals, plus 20 to 30 home runs, and I like he's going to be hitting at the top of the lineup. Man, I'm buying back in at his new range. Like I'm not waiting until 90. I'm getting him in like the 70s and 80s now, where he was going 34, 35 in July.
Yeah, right now in the month of February on online drafts, his average ADP is 94, high is 77. Like, yeah, he was the top 30 to 40 pick last year. That's kind of like, okay, would you rather go take the chance in Austin Meadows at 94 or take Teoscar Hernandez at 80?
I take Meadows. I think Teoscar is riskier, actually.
Yes, I don't disagree with that. What about Meadows at 94 or Trent Grisham at 63?
Oh, man. I love Grisham this year. I think for the discount, I'll take Meadows.
Yeah, see, that's where it gets tough. But because then we just talked about replacement value with catchers. Okay, so if you get Meadows here, then at pick 63 or whatever, maybe I get a pretty good SP2, or I go and get a second baseman because that's a bad position we talked about.
Yeah,
it makes that's why scheduling out or at least doing all the drafts like you're doing to get ready for it's very interesting. You mentioned now that you're not doing best balls, you're doing rotos, you're in to Meadows. Can you let the listeners kind of have an idea of what strategy changes do you make from best ball to like your standard roto type stuff?
Well, I was paying a lot more attention to guys' walk rates, to guys' strikeout rates for best ball. I was really trying to plan out also. I mean, you're going pitching so
heavy.
Early.
Yeah.
You're going pitching heavy. So as you're going with your hitters, you're going, okay, who's going to be getting plate appearances? Who's going to be and for me, Meadows is a plate appearance risk because it's Tampa Bay, because he had a core injury. He had a side strain, which is one of those injuries that reoccurs more often than other strain injuries. So I think that there is potential injury concerns with him. But so I was staying away from him because I thought, it's possible he's going to be 450 to 500 plate appearances. But I think in a roto, if he's hitting 25 home runs and 10 stolen bases in those 500 plate appearances, that's really valuable. That's more than the 94th pick.
Yeah, it's really interesting. And I've always said it with Tampa, they're going to rotate so many guys in and out. But it's like when Meadows is healthy, he's going to play every day. Like Willie Adames, I'm pretty confident playing shortstop every day. Like there's a couple of guys in that lineup that are pretty locked in. But then you play with everybody else. When you're drafting leagues, now obviously TGFBI is a 15-team league. What do you do differently from a 15-team league compared to like a 12-team league? Like when you're doing like an NFBC online championship or a satellite or whatever, that's a 12-team league. Maybe a home league is a 12-team league. But now we're doing a 15-team league. What are you doing differently?
I'm much more likely to take 2 hitters in a 12-team league to start off a draft. I don't want to get out of the first 2 rounds without a pitcher. And I'm much more likely to take a pitcher in the first round of a 15-team draft because maybe it's just this season. I consider probably 5 guys in a 15-team draft to be a first round value, maybe 6, depending on how you consider the Dodgers are going to pitch Bauer this year. Whether or not he's going to be, he obviously is not going to pitch every 4 days like he wants to, but is he going to get Dodgered and get like 180 innings, or is he going to get 200 innings? Like, I don't know.
Yeah, I think It's a great question because it's the Dodgers and we don't know. And really, they pay these guys because they want them in the postseason. They're
Mhm.
pretty much locked in there. Like there's no unless something really crazy happens, they're going to be in October, and
Mhm.
that's when they want him the most. That's what they paid him for. So it's interesting. It's like it makes a ton of sense to baby him because they have so much depth, Gonsolin, May, and all these guys that aren't in the rotation anymore.
Mhm.
But there's like part of you that knows Bauer's ego
Yeah.
that if you start like sitting him for no reason, he's gonna go straight to Twitter and say he's not hurt or something. Like it's gonna turn into like as much as everybody loved Yasiel Puig, there's a reason he was out of LA. Like he eventually the clubhouse just can't handle the crazy. And
Mhm.
Bauer is the epitome of a phenomenal ball player and full on crazy. Like
Yeah.
so it's just one of those deals. And that's why I understood why the Dodgers did it. It's one of those, hey, we got Kershaw and all these veterans, maybe they can hone him in.
Yeah.
But it's like you already have such a good chemistry there. Why do you want to bring him into the mix to mess with it? It's tricky. It's a very fine line. So I'm curious. Like Bauer's a guy that I haven't been able to draft yet.
Yeah,
I have
I haven't taken him either. It could have been just because they wanted to keep him out of New York's hands. I
no,
mean,
totally. They got the money to keep him away. Why not? Right?
yeah, yeah. For 15s, it's definitely pitching is something that I'm going much making sure I'm getting early in a 15. Whereas in a 12, I'm feeling fine in the third round who I'm getting at pitcher as my ace.
Yeah, I'm with you. Like I used to never be a massive pitcher early guy, and I definitely am now. Like I believe in my goal is to get like at least two in the first three, four at the most rounds,
Mm-hmm.
and I kind of almost want to get like three in the first five if I
Yeah.
can, because then I feel comfortable. Like after that, if I want to take a break, I feel good. Whereas 12 teams, like you said, there's three fewer teams, so that's quick math. Say it's a 30 round draft. There's 90 fewer players getting drafted. Obviously, it's a little less. That's a lot of replacement value you can take either on the waiver wire or
Mm-hmm.
throughout the draft. You can do things differently.
Mm-hmm.
So you can kind of take your gambles a little more. I kind of still want at least maybe one ace in the first couple of rounds,
Yeah.
but I'm not as like you said. If like certain hitters drop, I'm gonna just roll with the hitters. We're gonna make things happen. Now, when you're talking about let's say closers, for instance, in a
Mm-hmm.
12 to a 15, there's so many more closers in a 12 team league, but at the same time, you might need more saves because there's so many available to
Yeah.
qualify. Whereas in a 15, there's that's 30 closers potentially. There's your league. If you're waiting too long, you're going to get screwed. But there's also fewer saves to be had potentially for the roto points. So how do you go about that scenario?
Well, I've gone closer. I went closer early on my most two recent. I have Rysel Iglesias on one, and I have Hader on the other. So I'm feeling like I have to go pretty early. I don't mind setting the market, setting the first pick in the draft on the closer, just because I want and I actually have Hendricks as my top closer, but I want to have uh one of the top, you know, three or four actually, just so that I'm sure that I can come back and try to take column A and get him a lot later. Kimbrel get him a lot later, um, and guys who I'm thinking, okay, I'm hoping I get 20 to 30 from these other guys because I'm getting 30 to 40 from my top guy, and then I'll be all right on saves. Um, because like especially on the 12s, you're right. I don't want to be waiting and like my top closer is James Karinchak. You know,
That's rough.
yeah,
He might not be saving games, people. Hate to break it to you. Might
yeah,
not be having
yeah.
it. But yeah, it's just a math thing. When you look at overall saves needed to qualify for X percentile and all these different things, you start hamstringing yourself to this whole scenario. Um, I'm with you. I at least want one closer early. If I can get two, that's great. It just seems like these drafts we're doing right now, once like the first big one goes, it's like a domino effect. And if you're not hurrying, you might get one of the top five or six. Otherwise, you're looking at Karinchak in hand, and now you're like, do I just
Yeah.
wait a few more rounds and just say screw it and get Colome or someone else later and roll the dice there? It's tricky, very
I mean,
tricky.
then there's definitely a strategy. Like you can say, all right, I'm removing relievers from my board for 15 rounds. And in the first 15 rounds, say of a 15 team, there could be 30 relievers taken. So you're pushing 30 guys up your draft board. And that way you're getting like values at outfield and shortstop and starting pitcher when other guys are worrying about relief pitchers. But you're going to be way behind on saves at that. And you're going to be spending a lot of your effort during the season to catch up.
Yeah, it's one of those things that you can get home runs later, you can get stolen base later. You can't get saves all the time.
No.
And there's the saying that you can get saves on the waiver wire. Sure, it's expensive. It's very expensive. So if you want to play that game, I know some people love doing it. More power to you. It's a gigantic headache. So good luck with that.
Yeah, and you're not maybe you're not able to compete on prospects coming up because you're worried you have to save fab for saves.
Yeah, like when Justin Turner gets hurt, now you can't get Edwin Rios. Think about that. Think about that. It's such a scenario. Yeah, just let that sink in for a minute. So yeah, that's another fun one. You mentioned you're not afraid to jump ahead to get your closers. Just in general, it doesn't have to be for closers per se, just any position type guy, just a player that you like. How do you like? I've had this question on the show before from listeners. How do you know when you want to jump or how soon to jump type thing? I tell them it's just kind of what's going on in the draft. Like you can't, there's no scientific answer to it.
Right.
But like how early to you is like two, or are you willing to go 2 rounds, 3 rounds, 4 rounds? Like what are you doing when you're looking at that?
I sometimes will plan my jumps. If I know my draft position going in, I will look 3 rounds early just to make sure I get a guy if I really want him bad. I will plan it like, okay, in round 6, I'm taking so and so. So I'll build my first 5 rounds up to that. But if I'm not committed to a guy on my team, I like to go 2 rounds early because you don't want to get cute with it and miss your guy.
And especially in TGFBI, for instance, and you've been doing some analyst leagues and everything, ADP does not count.
Right.
Like it just, especially you're going to see in TGFBI, it might count for the first couple rounds just because it's kind of, yes, this is where the guy, it's like in football. Yes, these are the best running backs. Like that's what's going to happen. Once like that first slew of positions go, get your guys. Just go get them.
Yeah.
Otherwise it's not happening. It gets wild.
Yeah. Come up with your order of guys that you want to get. And
so
you'll probably get most of them.
When you say something like that, and this is where I think it gets interesting, people have like their ranking sheets, or you can have like a tier sheet. Like, do you like the idea of the tiers? Because it's like, okay, I want to get one of these guys in a tier, so make sure I jump when I have to jump, or how do you go about it in your like kind of rankings that you're talking about?
I rank by round rankings, and so I'll have depending on how it goes, I'll say there are 5 outfielders I have as first round rankings, just saying, or 6. I'm not sure exactly off the top of my head. I'll do round rankings so that when I go through a draft, I'll have, I'll cross off as people get drafted and I go, oh, I have a 3rd round rank on that guy and I'm in the 7th round right now. That is who I'm targeting, so I don't necessarily tier positions, but when I'm building my draft board, I move people around aggressively to try and put people on my draft board in positions where like they will look like I'm getting them at a fantastic acquisition cost according to DPHO. Because I consider them, because I bump them up to 2 or 3 rounds on my draft board.
That makes sense. I like that quite a bit. With all these early drafts that you've been doing, what do you think is, well, first off, I'll say this, what position do you think is the weakest position that you need to be more aggressive on?
It's third base. I've been caught, and like I love Brian Hayes, but I've been caught with him on too many teams as my third baseman.
Yeah.
And I'm just not confident. Matt Williams is like, he's going down to the minors. I'm like, stop saying that. He's on too many of my teams.
Yeah. I love Brian, but it's like I either have him or thank God, like I say it once it happens, thank God someone likes him more than me and took him, because like I'm with you. I'm going to take him on my next pick if he's there. Okay, good. Someone took him. Thank you.
Yeah.
I don't have to worry about it because I have such high hopes, but it's one of those where you could see just the kind of banana peel coming out at some point in time. So,
yeah. And I don't know what to do about Josh Donaldson. I'm not sure what to expect from him. Like Turner's, like we talked about Turner.
I'd rather Turner just because like at least that average is so huge, but it's tough. It's tough.
Yeah. So I mean, if I and like no one knows what you're going to get from Chris Bryant. No one knows what you're going to get from a lot of these third basemen that you are hoping to rely on season over season. So if you're not looking in the first couple third basemen, it's really a crapshoot.
Yeah, it gets nasty. It's real nasty. Now we're talking about like statistical categories, the main 5x5. roto, let's say offensively, what's the one that you feel most confident that you can get later in drafts?
It's power. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
got to be power.
I just wanted to have someone else say it too, because I try to tell the listeners when they ask questions, this is what another reason we can get JT Realmuto here, because I can get a power outfielder later. Like Realmuto's average will, take over the problem here, and you get stolen bases from a catcher, like you mentioned. So now his value at a catcher's position is tremendous. And now I can go later and I'll still get power, hopefully like a 240 to 250 average, and you can make it work type thing.
Cole Calhoun. It's the Cole Calhoun
no respect.
rule.
No respect. My goodness. I can already see it. I'm going to put out my rankings, and people are going to go, "Why is Cole Calhoun ranked so high?" I said, "Go look at his pages." Like, I don't even want to tell you.
35 home runs this year.
Yeah, I don't even want to explain. Just go look at his pages, please. Just go ahead. It makes it easier. But yeah, he's quite the stud. So before we wrap up TGFBI, any final thoughts that you have? Any questions for me for TGFBI? Anything TGFBI related for you?
Oh man, the league I'm in Justin Mason's league. Actually.
Oh, he put you in his league. That's a tough one. I can't remember, but I remember it's ranked pretty high as one of the tougher leagues. So
it is. It's pretty tough. There's a lot of first timers in the league, but then it's balanced by a lot of real vets in the league.
Nice.
So speaking of TGFBI goals, I'd like to beat all the other first timers in my league.
See, that's a reasonable goal, though. That's a good, reasonable goal. I like that. I think there's 8 or 9 first timers in mine too, and then there's maybe one other 4th year guy like me. So that part of me goes, oh man, that's a lot of pressure. Like I can't get smoked in this league, but it's tough. Baseball's, man. You've played it long enough, or any fantasy leagues. It just takes 1 or 2 injuries, and it's just like, what do you want me to do?
Yeah, the best player can't overcome that.
That's what got me in last year, because due to COVID and everything else, my fab was gone by the midseason point. I had no option. I just tried to field a roster. That's all I could do. It was impossible. It sucked.
So do you, when you're fabbing, do you try to look like, oh, I might need this person in 2 weeks so I can get them for less now? Yeah, is that something that you do?
That's what I'm trying to do. And trust me, I've asked some of the best fab players. Luckily, I recorded with one of them. Toby is phenomenal at fab, but dude, he spends more hours on that than I can even imagine spending. So that's probably why he's so good at it. Like Vlad Sedler, I've asked him before, and some other guys, Scott Jenstead, some of the best at it. Mm-hmm. And they'll tell you, they look at kind of the 10 to 14 game schedules and go, okay, hey, in 2 weeks, this dude's going to be in Coors.
Right.
You can get him for $1 right now.
Right.
But you got to make sure you got that roster spot. So it's kind of tricky. You'll see it a lot, especially with a lot of the really experienced guys. Going into the week, you'll see everyone spend a lot of money for 2-star pitchers that week.
Mm-hmm.
But you can buy the 2-star pitchers the following week for $1 instead of $30.
Yeah.
That adds up a lot in the end. A lot. So, and if you do it for $1 and somehow the schedule changes or the rotation changes, which happened a lot last year with COVID, it was $1. It really doesn't crush you. So it's the more you can figure that out, and there's more and more awesome resources that are making it easier to figure that out. It's true. Baseball HQ has some, Razzball has some, RotoWire has some, even ESPN has some. There's places you can find it now, which makes life so much easier. That's something I'm trying to become better at. That's for sure. It's because I used to be the same guy. Oh, it's Sunday morning. Let's go look at who's on the waiver wire. That's no, that's not going to get you very far.
Now, I've heard people be like, "Oh, so and so went for $300." I can't imagine spending 30% on one person. But what's your philosophy? Is there a maximum percentage of your budget that you're going to spend? I guess early, at least.
It depends on the player, but usually I'm very frugal, and that sometimes is a detriment of mine. But the year I finished 35th overall, I was still able to buy players until the final week. Yeah. And the later in the season, when no one else has money, you get them for basically free because there's no $0 bids. So it's a fine line. It's a very fine line. Last year, I had no choice because literally I was just getting gutted by injuries. I couldn't fill the roster, so I was $20 here, $30 here. It was just. It might have not have been one $300 player, but I spent $400 the first week or something just to fill the roster. So that part sucked. You had Fabapalooza a couple years ago with all Kira and all them came up. I didn't get any of them because I didn't spend enough money. So I should answer your question right there for one.
Right.
But it just depends. Some guys are really good at it. Some guys like me still trying to figure it out. I do better kind of getting the the mid to low type guys. The ones I do get, I'll get relievers. I'll spend on those if I'm desperate for saves because I need the saves. The other guys are usually such question marks. I'm kind of nervous to spend the money, if that makes sense.
Do you feel like specking on 8th inning guys is worth it, or is it there's just not enough roster spots to do that?
If you have the roster spots, that's that thing is because there's no ILs on NFBC. There's none of that. So literally, you need to be able to use these roster spots to maybe speculate 2 weeks in early for a hitter or a 2-star pitcher. I have no problem speculating on closers, or if you have the options for it. One thing I've done the last few years, super cheap, openers.
Mm-hmm.
They're going to pitch 2 innings. They're going to be out, but they're going to pitch twice a week. So you might get 4 to 5 innings, hopefully decent ratios, couple stay, like a strikeout per inning. That just adds up over time if you need some. I had like Wilmer Font that year that I finished 35th, and people like, why did you buy him for $1? He was opening for the Blue Jays like twice a week, and his ERA was like low. He wasn't walking anybody. It helped my ratios out a ton. So it's just kind of team dependent as you go on through the year, but specking on sometimes a spec closer is going to be better than any starting pitcher on the waiver wire.
Yeah. Yeah.
So 15 teams leagues, you get deep. You got to get creative. That's just the best thing I can say is, especially once injuries happen, it's like, okay, I can go pick up Chris Bubick, who I actually don't mind in a deep league.
Yeah.
But you can go get him, or, hey, I can go get Nick Whittegren of Cleveland and see if he maybe gets some saves eventually.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that kind of stuff.
I think he might end up being the closer anyway.
I'm with you. I've been saying that the whole time, and I think it's starting to like more and more. I'm hearing it more and more. I'm like, oh, yes, I might have got one right.
Let's speak it into existence.
Yes, I'm with you. All right, let's do some listener questions here. We have a couple of them to go off of. Steven Yeomans at Kinda Not asks, who are your favorite targets from teams projected to be out of contention, like Baltimore, Detroit, Pittsburgh? So teams that are bad, and I mentioned like in DFS, I played Baltimore, Detroit guys all the time last year. So that was, I love Baltimore guys. Trey Boo is my boy. So I'm a big fan there. But what are some guys you're looking at on these kind of underachieving teams?
Well, I love almost all of the Kansas City Royals.
Yes,
so I'm not sure.
Very sneaky lineup.
I'm not sure if we would consider them underachieving, but I wanted to say that Bubick was a nice late pickup, especially if a really late draft. If you got like a 50-round draft and hold, he's going to throw innings. Seattle has a lot. I'm not sure if we're going to consider them a poor team, but J.P. Crawford, Ty France, Evan White, late guys there. But Baltimore, to me, Baltimore and Detroit are the gold standard of poor teams with potential. Because on Detroit, I'm going after Ramos, I'm going after Scope, I'm going after Nunez and Castro, Grossman. Although I'm not 100% sure how much he's going to get after they sign Mazzara. I like Detroit a lot. Baltimore with Santander, Chance Sisco, super late catcher who I like, and Hunter Harvey. I think he's going to be full-time closer for them all season. Baltimore, and with team, you don't need to get 100 wins to get 40 saves. You could have 65 wins, and 40 of them are save situations. I think Hunter Harvey could end up walking into 30+ saves this year.
Yeah, I like that quite a bit. There's a lot to like from those sneaky teams, and they come at a cheap price because they're not good.
Yeah.
So it's a beautiful thing there. You might know this guy, David Mendelson at DMindio2 asks, what is different about your draft process from this year compared to last year?
I'm much more likely to take a pitcher in the first round now than I was last year. So that I'm going to bring that back. And like I said earlier as well, the 2020 discount guys are the guys who had poor 2020s. I'm much more likely to disregard last season than I was coming into last season. So I think that's a big change for me. Yes, starting pitching is moved up, definitely, for sure. I think everyone's feeling that way.
Yeah, no, that's a common theme, but I'm like you. I was still trying to get a couple, but I wasn't like fortunate like I am now. Like I wanted. So I didn't ask you this for TGFBI. That was our final listener question. But for NFBC leagues, for those that don't know, you have to set a KDS. That's your Kentucky Derby style drafting. Like you put in 1 through 15, whatever order you want. You don't have to give me your numbers, but do you prefer front, middle, or back?
I like the back.
Yeah, because you can get those pitchers.
Yeah, you get those pitchers. and you get your second player before everyone else.
What I tell people is I prefer the back than the middle than the front. That's kind of how I look at it. And the reason I kind of like the back, I guess maybe the front before the middle, but the middle's not bad because you don't miss out on runs.
Right.
But the back I like because, like you said, early in the draft, you can get the two good pitchers or whatever, get two really good studs before everyone else does. But the other thing is, I like how it makes me, like we talked about, reach for my players.
Yeah.
Because I know, hey, if I'm picking 14th, it's like 28 to 30 picks, so rough math, 28 picks or whatever, before I pick again.
Right.
There's a great chance that guy's not going to be here. And do I want to take that chance? Go get your guy.
You're 100% right. I never thought about it that way, but that's one of the reasons why I do like it because I can throw the draft sheet out the window and just go, my guys, I'm just going to draft them here because I don't, 28 picks, who knows what's going to happen? Yep. Who knows? And so I'm reaching on closers. I'm reaching on starters that I really like. And people might go, why'd you make that pick? And I'm like, this is who I like. Like you said, throw it out.
Yeah, because like say you're picking 14 and it's round 4 and you're thinking, okay, I'm gonna get a closer when he comes back to me. Well, if like the 3 picks from then a guy starts a closer, that run's gonna start. You're stuck now with, like we talked about, the guys you don't want to pick. Like you just miss out on all of it.
Yeah.
So that's kind of where I'm at on that. Like so that could work, I guess, if you're on the front end too. But I think that hit you almost take from that the 1-2 turn area.
Yeah,
I really want that 1-2 turn area. So
yeah, I think for me it's like 15 and 14 and 13 not so much, but 15 and 14 are the top spots for me. Well, I guess I just put it out there, but who cares?
I put mine out many times. No one remembers.
but like I kind of if I'm thinking from the start of the draft, I kind of like 4 because you're going to get one of the top 3 to 4 hitters or one of the top pitchers, your choice of the pitchers.
And that's one thing when I usually set my KDS, so I talked all about the back that I love. But what I'll do is I do 4, 3, 2, 1, just like you said. And then I go 15, 14, 13, 12, all the way to 5.
Right. That's
where I'm at KDS. So it's because I love the idea. If I get one of the top 4, I get a Cole or a DeGrom. Or if I want to take a stud hitter, Soto, Acuna, Tatis, whoever you want, like they're all there.
Right.
So that's awesome. And you're obviously going to get 2 good picks on the way back. So as much as we talked about the back end being great, you're still getting 2 studs on the way back. That's just the way it's going. But man, it's like you look at the back end, you can go get like a Giolito and this, and it just feels so much nicer.
Yeah. I mean, I'm so comfortable with like Bryce Harper and Lucas Giolito as my first 2 picks.
Yep. It's
I'm feeling really good. And I could then, if I wanted to go crazy, I could pound pitching again at like 45, 46 if I'm at 15, and I can go get 2 more really good starters there because you're still dealing with the Maedas or Glassnows or Sonny Grays. And you're like, oh, I can go get a second pitcher now.
Well, and that's the other thing. So if you're in the front end and say you don't take Cole or DeGrom,
right,
you're almost forced to take 2 on your next pick because that 4th one is not going to be as good.
Right.
But if you're in the back end, you can go pitcher hitter. And more often than not, your 3rd round or 4th round, you should have at least a decent pitcher, like you just said.
Right.
So there's more strategy to it there. So it's almost like if you took a hitter with one of the top picks, you're almost forced to take 2 pitchers now, which really takes you out of the mix, which I hate being forced to take a situation there. So it's
because there's a lot of guys around that 2-3 turn where you're like, oh man, I'd love to go Kyle Tucker, get that speed power combo. Maybe I'm into a Aloy here, but no, I need pitching here because I had the 3rd pick. Now it's like, okay, who am I going with? Woodruff just went. Castillo just went. Am I going with Kershaw now? I don't know. You know.
Oh. Yeah, it's like Kershaw as a 2, maybe as a 1. I can't stomach that yet. It's tough.
Yeah, it's tough.
So yeah, that's what's fun about this, chatting about this, and people need to do some mocks of their own or some best balls in SBC 50s, whatever works for you, to just get a feel of the player pool and see kind of what's going on, because it gets interesting. It's very interesting. But Art, it's going to wrap us up, my friend. It's been a fun night. Plug away everything you got going on, where they can find you, all that good stuff.
I'm on Twitter at art_T_Z. I'm all every week, Saturday mornings, we're putting out Triple Play Fantasies baseball show. That's going to be in your Apple podcast apps once you hit subscribe. I'm like I said, I'm writing for SP Streamer, and hit me up on Twitter any questions, and check out my articles.
Yeah, Art's a really good guy, like I said at the beginning. So don't be afraid to hit him up. And you guys should be following him if you aren't already. Again, at art_T_Z. Art, always a pleasure chatting with you. It's fun to be on this side of it with you. Thanks for joining me, my friend.
Thanks for having me.
All right, everybody. This is Bench with Bubba, episode 343 with Art Tornabini from Triple Play Fantasy. Catch you guys later.